improvements of the economy during Pinoy's administration?
There are a lot of improvements during the administration of Pinoy, although some of those improvements were not really publicized. One of the things that the Aquino administration really did was they improve a lot of infrastructures outside Metro Manila, because one of his programs was inclusive growth, and one of the targets, what he wanted to do, was to also develop provinces around the Philippines. Since here in Manila we have so much infrastructure already, what he wanted to do was he reached out to provinces, improved a lot of roads, especially from farm to market, and there were a lot of provincial bridges that he actually improved on.
What would you say is the strengths of his economic agenda?
Well, I think the strengths of his economic agenda was he was able to bring in a lot of foreign investors because of the confidence of the foreigners, especially foreign investors, in his administration. Although we do know that there have been a lot of criticisms and there have been a lot of issues during his administration, but because of both confidence coming from the local and of course from the foreign community, a lot have already invested in the Philippines. There were a lot of improvements, a lot of infrastructures, and that has also paved the way for us, improving our credit. We have improved our credit rating, the Moody's credit rating, and then I think there was a time wherein we were able to give money, I think, to one of the countries that were devastated. I think it was, I'm not mistaken, I can't really remember what country was hit by a huge disaster, but the Philippines under President Aquino actually gave money as financial support to the country, whereas it has been the case where in Philippines would always receive financial assistance.
What is the greatest weakness of his economic agenda?
I think the greatest weakness of his economic agenda was still on looking into more on inclusive growth. Of course, you have the growth in provinces, you have the improvement in infrastructure, but a lot of the improvements came from, let's say, from people or from families who are rich, I guess. I think the problem with his economic agenda was it brought a lot of investors, but it's the capitalists who really benefit from the foreign investors. And when it came to his inclusive growth agenda, there was still the increasing gap between the rich and the poor. And of course, during his time, one of the criticisms was that the salary of a CEO has jumped leaps and bounds compared to the normal employees. And aside from that, I think his problem also was during his economic agenda. With his economic agenda was the challenges posed by corruption, because it seems that even during his time, he has been assigning people he knew. So if you do know, during the time of the MRT crisis, when Secretary or then Secretary Abaya was assigned, we do know what happened to the MRT. There were a lot of mishaps, there were a lot of problems, and it wasn't quite handled. It wasn't quite handled well.
Okay. What is the program that was most beneficial for the Philippines?
Well, I think the program that was most beneficial during his time was the expansion of PPPs, or the public-private partnerships. Because actually the concept of PPPs is that the government would use the resources, they would partner with private firms, since we do know that private firms are more efficient compared to public or compared to government firms. So he also promoted a lot of PPPs because he knew that to be able to meet the challenges in improving infrastructure, we still have to use the best efficient or the best, or allocate and use the best resources, which is actually resources that are owned and managed by private firms. So actually, a lot of the expansion in infrastructure were actually PPPs. So you have, let's say, even the Skyway, well, it was credit grabbed by the current DPWH, Secretary Villar, but it was actually during Pinoy's time that they had to work on expanding the Skyway to connect the north and the south. And then in my area, we have the connecting exit from the South Super Highway or SLEX going to Cavite. So there were a lot of infrastructures that were mainly based on PPPs.
Last question. What can the title learn from Pinoy's administration?
I think we do know, or obviously what Duterte said was he will still continue the economic agenda of Pinoy.
Yeah.
So it means that there must be something good within Pinoy's economic agenda that Duterte wants to not really imitate but wants to continue. And I guess one of the economic agendas that Duterte has to really look into is the controlling the inflation rate, because the problem that we have right now is that our inflation rate is continuously going high. Well, maybe because a lot of people are not employed, because it could be that prices go up because people are employed, people have more money right now. But of course, the problem also that the Duterte administration has to look into is also to look into possible ways to improve trade. Because even during the time of Pinoy, he wasn't that keen on expanding the international market in the Philippines. So we are still mostly into importing rather than exporting. But of course, during his time, because of the expansion of infrastructure, expansion of other firms, we were able to increase our exports, but just not big enough. But of course, the problem right now is the confidence of foreign investors is at an all-time low because of a lot of political pressure and a lot of the political situation that we have been happening. So if Duterte wants to be able to sustain the growth of the Philippines, he has to look into not only into the drug war, but also to look into other aspects as well, such as of course, we do know that he has the Build project. But the problem with the Build project is that Duterte actually wants PPPs to be abolished. So all resources will be coming from the government, which will be very expensive for us because it means that our taxes has to be raised. So that is why they are using the train. Of course, we do know that in the train or the tax reform, there will be a decrease in income tax for the lower brackets, but there will be an increase in the higher brackets. But we do know that people in the higher brackets are rich enough to buy whatever goods that they want. But there is the danger that they will be increasing excise taxes, the value-added tax, and even removing the exemption of VAT on PWDs and senior citizens just to offset the potential decrease in taxes. So I think they really have to look into that, because if we increase the excise taxes and especially value-added tax, everyone buys. Let's say, simply if you go to McDo, we see that receipt with that value-added tax. It's already 12%. They want to increase it to 15%. Of course, it's just not the rich that buy from McDo or Jollibee. It's also people that are at the lower brackets. So it could also increase the prices of goods. I think from one of my conversations is that, or one of the conversations I had with a team member who drafted also the train or the tax reform, is that there will only be a slight increase in or there will only be a slight increase in inflation. So I asked the person how much. So it's 0.9 percentage points. It seems low, but remember that the current inflation of the Philippines is 3.3. And if you add it, let's say 3.3 plus 0.9, that would be 4.2.
Yeah.
And then the target, the inflation target of the central bank is just between 2 to 4%. So the current administration really has to polish a lot. They don't there are some policies that during the Aquino administration that were also questionable. And I understand that they had to eradicate some. But the policies in place of those policies that were removed are also questionable. So I think that's my piece.
Thank you, sir.